Thank you for tuning in to this week's Roll for Crit podcast, the official podcast for rollforcrit.com. Watch, shop, play. I'm Jonathan Estes.
And I'm Will Keeler. We've got a lot of news, particularly from Wizards of the Coast today.
Wizards of the Coast and some Fantasy Flight, and that's it.
Yeah.
those are the only two. So we won't waste any more of your time. We'll jump right into it. This is a bit of a strange one that you might have heard of. You're familiar with Betrayal at House on the Hill. You're familiar with Dungeons & Dragons. Well, they are releasing a brand new version of Betrayal at House on the Hill themed around Dungeons & Dragons. As you can see behind us, it is called Betrayal at Baldurs Gate, being published by Avalon Hill, who of course is owned by Wizards of the Coast, who owns both of these, or they're both owned by Hasbro. That's a whole web of...
It's under the same umbrella.
They're all under one big old weird umbrella. So as far as we can tell, and we can't tell that much yet, it's still an early stage, this sounds pretty much identical to Betrayal at House on the Hill, just with new themes and presumably new haunts. But
I would hope so, because I feel like some of those haunts are a little weird. Like, you've all shrunken down into little people and you need to get on the toy plane.
They would just be like, a wizard shrunk you, and it's a bird instead of a plane.
I guess, yeah, but just
nailed it. Instead of the basement, it's now the catacombs. There's now street tiles and building tiles, so maybe those will play out in some different way. However, there is still a different basement landing tile, so I don't know. You still kind of have to find the basement, I guess, in this version. And
the catacomb.
And according to the contents list, it still includes plastic clips. So I'm not sure what the cards look like, but it sounds like they're using the same attribute system with those little clippy clips that we all hate.
There's only 4 attributes in Betrayal, right?
Correct.
That's interesting because there's 6 in D&D.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they might have combined a couple, or...
Oh, maybe. I would like to see them actually use all 6, and that way some of the haunts can be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, that might be interesting.
I mean... It's definitely not the theme we would have thought to be announced. This actually came from a big announcement with a bunch of other Wizard stuff. I think they talked a little bit more about the deck building game, which we already talked about on the show, as well as they're bringing back, I think, a very famous old villain.
They're doing some new, for the main RPG you're talking about, right? Yeah, the story stuff.
Like those two we already knew about, and honestly make a bit more sense. This is definitely not.
It's out of left field.
Yeah.
I mean, is this something would you be excited to play this? What was your reaction when you heard it?
I mean, my reaction was sort of like, this isn't. I mean, as I was saying before, I was like, really? I mean, did I need a reskin of Betrayal?
Yeah.
And D&D, because I mean, while D&D, you can customize to be whatever you want. You know, you can make it a gothic horror or whatever and stuff. You know, it's just. I don't usually think of a traitor in D&D, so.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the way they're kind of spinning it is that maybe, like a beholder takes over your mind or whatever, or mind flayer.
Yeah, there's little things like that, but it's not, you don't think traitor right away for D&D, usually. I mean, I'm sure that people have made campaigns and whatnot, but it's not a core mechanic of it. I mean, I could be completely right. I want to try it.
It is weird. I wonder if maybe their thought process was Betrayal is a big gateway game. It's one of a great one to introduce new people to. It introduces you in a lot of ways to deeper mechanics in harder board games. Maybe they want to get the more casual players aware of the D&D brand. So they're trying to put that into their brains.
Really silly considering I feel like any game, if you were to take out the list that isn't Hasbro's Monopoly and stuff, D&D is number 1. In terms of we just see it in common culture so much.
Well, that's true, but I think it's more of a. I think to most people that aren't role-playing game players, it's like, oh, I know what D&D is, but I would never play that, and I don't know anyone who does. Whereas I think board games have a much easier entry point than an RPG does.
But do you think by playing this, people are going to be like, okay, I'm more interested in D&D?
Maybe. I mean, little by little, it might. it would help. I don't think it would hurt. Like if at some point they were like, "Oh, I remember. I know what a goblin does or whatever."
Oh, so you mean more the final, not just the title D&D, but maybe like a beholder.
Yeah, the actual actually being immersed in that universe. And
all right,
like,
that makes a bit more. Yeah, okay. I thought you meant literally just. Like, I've heard Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, that's what I was like.
No, from playing
I think
people who have actually played the game. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is from what they're trying to do here. Because otherwise, I mean, I have no interest in this. I already am kind of tired of Betrayal, and this is the same thing.
As of now, I mean, I want to see if I can go to like a convention where they have a public board game and play it there or something. You know.
Sure. I mean, yeah, obviously you'd want to try it, but.
It
doesn't sound like it's different at all, so I don't know what they're offering me exactly.
Well, I could see the street thing being completely, like, because that means a lot more outside if you go in and out of buildings and stuff, and which could be a bit more interesting.
I mean, maybe.
But I'm curious if there's a second floor.
If the haunts and omens and stuff are interesting enough, maybe you could mix that in with the base and use this as a big expansion.
Maybe the clips will be better.
Yeah, maybe the clips will be better. So there's something to think about there, but yeah, it's weird. It's certainly weird, but we'd love to hear your
that
thoughts.
was the real-world traitor reveal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The haunt began at that moment. Now, speaking of new games that sound exactly like old games, we also got our first look at some details of the newly announced Whitechapel Mystery, Whitehall Mystery, which is part of the Whitechapel. It's a whole thing. Fantasy Flight is releasing a brand new game in what they are now referring to as their Whitechapel series, based on the original Letters from Whitechapel, which is about catching Jack the Ripper. And they put out a thing about what this game is going to be like. It's a standalone product. Mm-hmm. And it sounds exactly the same as the original. There are a few differences. For one, this is for 2 to 4 players only. The other one went up to 6. Mm-hmm. And rather than Jack just trying to get to his hiding point, he now has different body parts that he is hiding and burying around the city. So at the start of the game, I know it's gross, Jack is going to be choosing not just 1, but 4 separate locations, and he has to make it to each one to do that. Other than that, I mean, you now have characters for the policemen or women who have special abilities, and there's some other modular things, but it sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, this sounds like the Eldritch Horror of Arkham Horror kind of deal. I like the idea of having to go to 4 spots with the body, but I don't know for Whitechapel, because I don't know why he needs it. Like, I guess you can argue they have a compulsion or something. I could see this actually, and granted, this is in terms of a theme that's beaten to death, like either like Cthulhu or dark, and actually like it's like ritual related or something, and maybe he secretly chooses one of, instead of just Jack the Ripper, it could be like secretly choosing one of 4 dark people, so you have to put one in this area of town and this, but you're not sure. So then there's some detective work of like, okay, we found one in this district. We know that means it has to be one of these guys or something. It'd be a bit more interesting.
That could be interesting. I think they want to stick to historical accuracy.
I mean, they're going with it, but I could see that would be much more, at least to me, more interesting of why the body parts are being spread.
Yeah, other than just he wants to hide them.
Yeah.
There is also an app that will be available with this game that is optional, but you can use it to help Jack the Ripper choose a spot, for instance.
So it's really just a random...
I'm sure it has other features, but that's one of the things that they talked about. And you also can mix it a little bit with the older game in that you can use some of those extra, those extra things that we never ended up using, where you can make one side stronger or weaker depending on how your games go. Stuff like that, which is cool. It does. I mean, you said Eldritch Horror, but I feel like Eldritch Horror was fairly different.
No, it was different. I just was thinking of something in terms of that was like in the same universe, but really.
But I agree. It does sound like a second edition of Whitechapel, but they are not advertising it that way.
Right.
Which is interesting. So I wonder if, because they just came out with that expansion, so they can't be abandoning that so quickly.
I don't think so. And honestly, I mean, I'll need to play this one. Just because of the fact the other one fits more people, I think I'd rather play that one.
Well, what do you think about that? Because I know some people have very different takes on how many players they think are ideal for Whitechapel.
Well, I think that's ideally maybe it's possibly let's say it's a lower number, but the fact that you can fit that, and I still think it's playable. I mean, it's not like it's unplayable at the higher numbers. Just to have that option, so you're not like, all right, we have 5 people here at our game night. Well, Whitehall's off the board, you know.
Yeah, true. It's an option is usually better than not having an option.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you really are against playing with more than 6, you just consider like, okay, we only want 4 for this game. I mean, you still have the option there. It's not like you can't play with 4 people.
It could be their way of, a year from now, then they're going to come out with the 5 to 6 player expansion.
Oh my god.
Which is sort of what they did with Agricola, right? They kind of, when they repackaged it, it had a lower count. Which made a little more sense actually in Agricola because they could have a lower price point because there's a lot of components in that game. But I don't think you can say the same thing about Whitechapel. It doesn't have that much in it. So I don't know. This is Whitechapel Mystery. If you're a big Whitechapel fan, you might want to try it, or you might not care.
It could be really good. We don't know.
Again, like Baldur's Gate, it's interesting. I guess it's easy sometimes to just, why should you design a new game when you already have one?
They're seeing how movies are working, and they're like, that's how we should make our profit.
Yeah.
Someone call Michael Bay.
He's a genius, that man.
Next board game from Fantasy Flight, you just open it, it's just explosions.
They might get sued. Now, some Kickstarters that we have to give you this week for our Kickstarter Pickstarter segment. The first one is quite a big fella. It's called Lords of Helis, and this comes from Awakened Realms, who I just got in the mail their This War of Mine game, and they're ready to go with this one. And
you actually got a miniature for this.
That's right. One of the things that they sent out with that was a little promo figure from this game, which to whet my appetite for it, and boy did it. The theme of this game essentially is ancient Greek mythology, gods, and monsters, only the idea is that you discover the ancient Greek gods are actually aliens who came down from outer space and gave their technology to people rather than gods giving their magic. And it's basically a territory control game. You all have a different army with different powers, and you're trying to take over the board. The thing that separates it, I think, well, there's a few things. Number one is those miniatures, which are a big part of the game. There are many of them, and some of them are quite large. And so one of the things you could do is construct a monument, and you literally, like Legends of the Hidden Temple, assembling the monkey style, turn by turn, you're putting arms and building a monument, and they're big for the board, which I think is cool.
Can you build it faster, though?
That is the challenge. And no, you can't. It's one turn at a time.
That still might be able to build it before some of those kids.
You got a good point. You also have multiple win conditions. So you aren't going to be, for instance, a lot of these games, like these Risk-style games, sometimes you look at the board and you can say, well, clearly that guy is going to win because he has 17 armies on the board and I don't. On this one, there are multiple different types of land that if you control, you could win. You could also win, for instance, by just killing a certain amount of monsters, which maybe doesn't require as much land. So there are different ways you can go about that. There's also things like quests you can complete that are based on some of the myths. Really cool stuff. It looks like a giant, beautiful game with a cool theme. It's very expensive. The core set.
You said lots of miniatures, so.
Yeah, the core set is $106, roughly US, and that doesn't include shipping. And if you want their cool new patented Sundrop mini painting technology, which looks gorgeous, the whole set will cost you $154. So really big one. I am attracted to this just based on how great this War of Mine looks. But I don't, at $100, it's a tough sell, because you probably have a lot of games in this genre, I would say, if you're a gamer already. But I think if you are willing to put up the money, these guys probably won't let you down. That's my guess, and it looks really cool.
I mean, they were great for this War of Mine. So
yeah. So I think you'll be able to trust them. So check out Lords of Helis if you like that sort of thing. And next up,
Next up is Biologic. In this game, each player will take over a different sort of disease, I guess you could say. One's like a virus, one's bacteria, one's actually even like nanobots and stuff.
Okay.
And pretty much you're going through the human body, just who can be the deadliest thing. And there's different tiles representing different parts of the body, like the brain, the heart, and obviously those are the final tiles you want to get control of. And you can actually fight each other to gain more power and evolve. So to me, it looked like this really cool, beautiful. Remind me a lot, of course, of the Rick and Morty episode that is also getting a board game.
Right, Anatomy Park.
Yeah, but just because it's not actually laid out human, the tiles are random and stuff, so it's not always just like, okay, I know this leads to there.
Huh.
Which, while maybe not perfect, I still think is a little bit more fun because it brings more variety to the board game.
It's sort of like Osmosis Jones.
But that too, except you're on the bad side.
But you are all in the same person's body, so it's just one unfortunate.
Yeah, one really bad, unfortunate person. But it looked really cool and had a lot of more all these interesting mechanics of combating, how to evolve by either owning the spot or you have to actually beat the antibodies on the spot. So I thought it looked really cool.
That sounds fun. Biologic, that goes for $59. Mm-hmm. Check that one out. Next up, this one is called Pocket Ops, and this is perhaps the opposite of my other pick. It's very small. It has pocket in the title. It is essentially tic-tac-toe. Mm-hmm. You have a 3x3 board, and one player's red, one player's blue, and you're trying to get 3 in a row to win. Where the difference comes in is...
I really hope there's a difference.
There's a difference. That's it. Go back. It's $99. No. The difference is before your opponent plays, you have a series of cards, and you get to guess where you think they're going to go. And if you're correct, their move is canceled. So if they're definitely going to get 3 in a row, and well, you're going to say, well, I'm not going to let them go there. But then they might say, oh, well, he's not going to let me go there, so I wouldn't go there. But then maybe he'll try to
it's a very mind game kind of game, yeah.
And there's also special pieces in there that can have abilities, like they can push other people's pieces off the board or move them. And the theme is a spy theme. You're trying to like steal secret equipment from this lab or whatever it is. But it's a simple, fun pocket game.
I mean, bravo for trying to make tic-tac-toe interesting.
Yeah, exactly, and it's what it sounds like succeeding. It goes for only $14.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, if you want to try that one out, Pocket Ops. I know we've got a couple outside the box.
Yeah,
picks.
This one is the Atlas Animalia, I think I pronounce it, because I can't say words. But what really drew me to this one is the way it works is looked at Pathfinder and D&D as well. I mean, they sort of share their creatures. And instead of just being a monster manual with the usual, here are the stats and the things on that, while you can pay, I think, like $5 extra to get a sheet for stats on them, what it did, it took like 20 creatures, like, for example, the owlbear, which you can sort of see on there, and wrote a bunch of different species about them, and it like showed their anatomy and like actually like cut through the muscles and stuff, and how they would react, an Arctic version or like a plains version or a panda owlbear, which they have a picture of, which is adorable. And I just thought it was so cool because it was much more of an actual like science tome on these creatures.
So it's more like what if like Darwin discovered the...
A little bit, yeah, and it lets you really have these fun adaptations from like owlbear. Someone I know, I'm blanking on the name of the cat with the tentacles and something,
Yeah, I don't know.
Blanking on the name of them, but like in different environments, and which is really cool because it lets you take it almost like how Monster Hunter has the alternate species depending on the environment. It's like that.
The Alolan forms of
yeah, it's the Alolan forms. And I believe it's $15 for just the PDF, $20 if you have the sheet with the stats, but you could probably just make the stats because they are just almost copying.
And I believe it is $50 if you want a real hardcover.
Yeah.
Nice version.
But I mean, take a look because the art is beautiful in there. Like I said, like the one page shows they showed an example like for like a land shark creature. It shows it popping up on the bottom. It shows like the skeletal function. It shows it like the muscles on it. It was like really it felt like I was a kid again looking at those old like zoo books kind of.
That's fun. And they mentioned Pathfinder, but I'm sure you could adapt this for
right. Like I said,
anything.
Because it's not really the stats they write about. It's more the nature and how they'd act and stuff. And owlbears exist, as I used an example, in D&D. So I mean,
right.
You could probably just copy the stats and maybe fudge things depending on if the creature would make more sense for it to be fire resistant or whatever.
They also exist in real life.
Yes.
As we'll reveal in our final episode of the show. When we hit 5,000 subscribers, we'll show you an owlbear. And what is this beautiful thing. I think I can tell what it is.
This is pretty much, I just thought it was hilarious. It's called the Tablebreaker. It's pretty much a huge D20 die. It's about 5 inches, like made of metal.
Okay.
And I just thought it was hilarious. Like, they show using it as like for book cover, like shelves, like holding books and stuff. I thought it was sort of funny. Just if you're in that kind of stuff, I think it was great. I don't think I could buy one, not because of affordability or because I don't like it, but because I know if I had it, my brother would use it, and it would actually live up to the name, and he'd probably throw it as hard as he can against the table and break it.
Can you roll it? Could you use it as a real die if you wanted to, or is it really not made for that?
I didn't actually look. I guess I saw it more as a furniture piece, I guess, to me. But.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure, but I don't know. Maybe if you're playing giant D&D at a convention or something like that, could be fun. There's probably better ways to go about doing that, but
I thought it was something cool and different.
They call it the ultimate D20.
Spice up your living room.
That goes for $99 if you want one of those puppies. Now, last week we went over our top 10 properties we thought would make great board games. And a few other people from the Meeple Gallery put forth their suggestions that I'll highlight a few from right now. Falcon Ash K says Jurassic Park, deck builder, area control, park builder game. Make a park with cards and buy other buildings available in the center on the table. And you could have attractions, shops for visitors, and generate revenue by getting better cards. That sounds kind of cool. I mean, I know you didn't say because you have that game coming.
Right. Well, one of the things is that sort of reminds me. Someone made a suggestion, and maybe you can do a board game version of this. Someone suggested that they make a Jurassic Park game, and the way it works is the first half of the game is you actually build the park, just like any of those simulators. And then after a certain point, you stop, and then you actually play it as a person in the park, and when all hell breaks loose. So it's like the better your park is, the worse the second half of the game is going to be.
That's interesting. That could be fun. My hesitance with that is.
I mean, that's switching entire.
But yeah, it's just like Betrayal. I feel like it's hard to make two completely different games merge sometimes.
Maybe there's some way you could do that. That might be an interesting.
But I liked the just straight up park building idea.
I mean, I'm always up for more Jurassic Park.
Corvo Atano said Ridley Scott's Alien, not AVP, not Aliens. But Alien. I mean, there is the Legendary Encounters deck building game.
Yeah, that was the reason why both of us didn't say it.
That does exist, but
we've both talked about that idea, but we didn't want to say anything because we actually think we have a good idea and we don't want to talk about it.
We'll make that happen for you, Corvo. And then Dave Dogg had a real good suggestion. Porky's, the 1981 movie franchise. Are you familiar with Porky's?
Not at all.
It's sort of like the original American Pie.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was a joke. But I don't know. Why not?
Hey, they did a Wet Hot American Summer, so.
That's true. Why not? Why not? Hey, American Pie could be a good one. Maybe it comes with a pie and there's some kind of a...
I don't think I want that pie.
We won't go into that one. Keep those comments coming. We love to hear about them, anything that you've got to say. Now we had the chance to play some games.
Yes. In particular, one of them was actually on the Spiel des Jahres nominees.
It sure was. And now you can see it behind us. It's called King Domino. It's one of the, I was going to say few that are available in the US, but there's not that many to begin with, so probably a good percentage of them are available.
This is one of the reasons because I searched for all of them that are available. You can find this actually pretty well on Amazon for about $20. Same thing with Escape. Those two you can probably find without
He means exit.
Exit. I keep saying Escape. I apologize. But the hard ones to find are the Maze one. For whatever reason, I can't find it. I hear people talk about playing it.
I don't think it's out in America. I don't think there's
the Raiders, unless you want to pay like Raiders and Mars, unless you want to pay like 5 times their price. I was just waiting. Though I have seen some people say they sell them at regular, but it's like not coming out till September. It's like, well, that probably means Gen Con. So wait for Gen Con.
All right. Well, let's talk about King Domino though, which we did play, and you played it with 2 players only as well. And it go 2 to 4.
2 to 4.
2 to 4. It's basically a tile laying game. I think it's sort of Carcassonne-esque, but everybody has their own kingdom, and you're drawing from tiles. Basically like an auction system is how you described it, but you're not bidding with money.
It's simply just place. After you place yours, you get option of, depending on the number of players, tiles, And if you really want a tile, it might not be the first one though, so you won't get first pick on the next one.
Exactly.
So in that sense, you're bidding with your turn order, I guess would be the way to say it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And once you have a piece, you're slotting it somewhere into your grid, and you need to match the different types of terrain that are on each tile. Each tile has 2 squares that could be the same terrain or 2 different terrains.
Yes.
And you're going to get points based on how big your connected terrains are, as well as
times the number of crowns. Some of the tiles may have little crowns in them.
Right.
So even if you have a huge terrain but have no crowns in it, it's worthless.
So that's basically the game, and you also have it. You are limited to a 5x5 total area, so that also restricts. And if you can't play something because it doesn't match anything, you just can't play it. So that's something else you got to keep in mind. Also, sort of a little patchwork-esque.
No, that's really the game I thought of when playing this, because I mean, mostly because I'm like patchwork. I'm really thinking about how to fit things in.
Yeah,
it's like a puzzle.
But I will say, even though both are pretty light, easy gateway games, I feel that Patchwork has a little more depth, a little more going on when I'm playing it than this does. It's super simple. Anybody can play it.
Yeah, I mean, playing the 2, I'd say actually I really did enjoy this game. I think probably just because of breather of a 15-minute game that still had a lot of fun to it. I think this is actually something, I think it definitely fits a Spiel because it is something I feel like when you can really think, like, if you're an advanced gamer, you're still thinking, how can I fit this? How can I draft best or something? But I think I could put this down in front of, like, anyone in my family and they'd be able to grasp it and still have fun.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand why it's a Spiel des Jahres game. It's exactly the kind of game that they look for. Not a lot of components, real easy to set up, so that's good. It is a fun game. It didn't rock my world, but I think it's a filler game basically. It's what you're gonna want to play in between sessions or when you just have 10-15 minutes to kill and you don't feel like setting up a huge long game. It is colorful. The artwork is fun and cute. So yeah, that's my take on it. I don't have any like.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I guess you can call it filler, but honestly, I would say it's just like, of those 15 minutes compared to some other games, I think it does a really amazing job in those 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't use filler as a bad term.
Right, no.
Like, Love Letter is a filler game, and I love it.
And I guess I'm about to say, at this point of the Spiel des Jahres, it's this, the Dorado is the one I also looked up, and I think it translates to the Race Till of Dorado, but I think there's an English version, it's like the Trial of Dorado or something.
Okay.
Which will be coming, it looks like it will be coming around either September, between Gen Con and September. So look forward to that. But I would say this game alone makes me a little bit more positive for this year's Spiel des Jahres.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it more than Colt Express.
No, I definitely did. I definitely
that.
think I like this more than Colt Express. And I mean, hearing about the other two, well, first of all, I'm curious what the hell the deck builder has. I mean, we both admit that for a deck builder, I feel like a deck builder to get the Spiel des Jahres must do something, right? And the Maze thing I've read plenty about, and that's the one that confuses me because I've seen so many people talk about it, but just haven't seen. But
I'll be honest. I think at this point, for the most part, the Spiel des Jahres, I think they're really fun games, but they aren't the games that I'm stoked about. It's just not. I've gone past that rabbit hole, and I can recognize that the game is cool, but they're no longer I'm not gonna. For the most part,
you're on the other one now. Where
I'm the Kennerspiel.
Kennerspiel.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess
I'm still in between.
Like Codenames was like there are those ones that are there that really do strike that balance. And this one was it was good.
I guess to me, I was a bit closer for me, but overall, a lot of fun. I mean, a blessing for 15 minutes if you usually are playing 2-hour games.
It's cheap, so if you're looking for a light game that's got a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Pedigree.
Yeah.
To it because it was nominated for Spiel des Jahres. Check out King Domino. You also played something else.
Yeah, I played Artefact Inc. In this game, you're pretty much all playing. Pretty much either. I guess you're almost a mix of a paleontologist, archaeologist. Anything ancient, and you're just trying to get the most notoriety. To do this, you pretty much, it's sort of like Machikoro is actually a game it's really like. Pretty much you start with basic cards to roll dice, and that way to get money, to upgrade your cards, you can either flip them over or buy new cards in the center. Pretty basic that. What's sort of nice is the card, unlike Magic Card, which is sort of has its own thing, which is based more on the numbers you roll. Like this is for ones, this is if you roll 2 or 3, so on and so forth. The way this works more on is the cards will have on there like you can use either a 4 or above or a 2, and you put a dice on there to represent using that action. And some of the cards will say things like this card is worth 1 extra point for each adjacent expedition card that have Expedition. So there's also a placement aspect of your cards within 2 rows.
Okay.
So it's a race that once someone hits, it's one of those games that once someone hits a certain number of points, the game ends. So in that aspect, it can be one of those things where you're sort of like, I know I have no way out of this, depending on how the game's going. We were both very close, but we only played with 2, which was definitely, I want to think it needs to be played with more, because what happened was, they only give you a certain number of cubes to sell. You can sell your artifacts back to a museum, and if you have more, if you sell the most there, you get points, because the museum's like, he found the most fossils, he's great. But we pretty much would fill up the same place and get half of it, so we got a lot more money than I think we would, and we ended the game quicker. But overall, it was fun, and it had a good mechanic, and I feel like what's sort of nice is I felt like almost every dice roll we had, sometimes you feel like if you don't get a 4, 5, or 6, it's just worthless. It didn't feel nearly as bad as that.
There's different options.
Honestly, sometimes I was just like, oh, I wish I got that 2.
If only I could have rolled a 1. Would have been a great 1. Is this the first time you played this? I feel like we've played it before because I've seen it so much.
Well, because I keep trying to bring it out, and then no.
Because you've had it for a while.
Yeah, I got it through Kickstarter.
All right. Artefact Inc. I'm sure you can.
You can buy it now.
Buy that.
In fact, we might be sold out. It's on our store.
Yeah, so take a look in some places. I know you also got to do Soma Healing Blade.
Right. Pretty much, I did it with the same person, but he actually is going. He's going to his residency very soon, in the next week. So I decided to play it with covering up the viruses. So he had to guess what medicines worked against the virus, which is very fun.
And did he succeed?
He did not. And I gave him a handicap.
Which was what?
I had to kill 4 instead of 3.
So are they going to take away his medical license?
Yes, they are.
You think it's
well,
unjust?
to be fair, he only had access to 8 medicines, when if he's at a hospital, he usually has access to a bit more.
It depends on the hospital. Depends where he's stationed.
But it was still really fun, especially to see their point of view, because he'd be like, "This is work." I'm like, "Yeah, you got it." He's like, "Yes!" And he's like, "I wish I had this in med school."
We also did play Battlestar Galactica last week, and you and who was the other Cylon? Danny.
I was like, I'm shocked you forgot him.
Yeah, where you defeated us with a resounding defeat, it was very sad. Which was yeah.
I will say this: I feel like whenever I'm the Cylon, I win not because of me. I win because the game ruins you.
I was thinking about that, and I feel like that is often the way it feels in Battlestar. But I will say, in this game, we pulled off this great mission card that came from the Exodus expansion, I think, that destroyed one of the base stars. Normally in Battlestar, there are 2 base stars that spawn ships. They're your big bad enemies, and
this removed one from the game.
Removed one permanently.
Yeah. So even if I found a way to spawn 2, I wouldn't be able to.
Which is like, we all were stunned that existed. We all thought, oh my god, that's way overpowered for humans. That's amazing. We're on easy street. And you even, in response to that, revealed as a Cylon right away, because I think you thought the same thing.
Well, because what happened is, this obviously was a bad thing, and it's like, if you're a Cylon, which I was, it was sort of like you had to go all in on this.
Yeah.
And by doing so, because I know this one person who be count cards and know I was the Cylon, I got to reveal right after this.
And what ended up happening was, a base star never even came out.
No.
Didn't matter at all, and we just lost through resource depletion.
That was definitely, I think, the lowest on resources. Like, usually it's just 1.
Yeah.
You lost, you were at 1 on everything.
I'm at least glad I got to revoke the presidency from Danny, and he was on the brig for most of the game, and just still trying to convince us. And what was my favorite, the best defense ever? He was trying to plead to Garrett that he's like, I'm not a Cylon, I think you're the Cylon.
So you should help me get out of the brig.
Like, he's not gonna help you now. That's really not a good way to make a case. So that was fun, but yeah, it was a sad thing. But I did feel like before that game we had a couple human wins. So I felt like maybe it was time. I also we had a whole discussion about Earth versus Cobalt and the amount of distance that it takes. In this case, it wouldn't have mattered. We lost anyway. But I do feel like the game is just too long trying to get to Earth when you have to go 2 more distance and then jump again. I don't know, but maybe that's another thing that comes with playing the game more often. But we've played it a lot, so I don't feel like we really drag it down very much with our playtime. I think we're pretty snappy with it at this point. I don't know. I love to hear what people think about the Earth versus Cobalt thing with Battlestar or any of those expansions, what you mix and match in there. Or if you've played games we talked about like King Domino, Artefact Inc, Soma, Defenders of Soma, Healing Blade, or what have you, leave a comment right here on YouTube.
Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And you can follow us and comment on other places such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Roll4Crit. And of course, we'll be in your blood vessels.
Yeah, and our blood vessels will lead you directly to roll4crit.com, where you can buy some board games, check out more reviews and videos. Like we just put up a review of the game Bureaunauts, which is a really fun space-themed game that was on Kickstarter a while ago. And stay tuned for more stuff coming at you in the future. The future
is now.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this has been the Roll4Crit podcast.
Bye.